When life falls apart, how to survive a psychological crisis and come back stronger. The perfect storm, Ekaterina Sigitova. There are moments in life when everything seems to collapse at once. A relationship ends, a job is lost, a serious illness appears, or a carefully built future suddenly disappears. During these periods, people often feel as if they are trapped in the middle of a storm with no map, no direction, and no certainty that things will ever improve. In The Perfect Storm, psychiatrist Ekaterina Sigitova explains why psychological crises happen, how they affect us, and most importantly, how we can move through them without losing ourselves. Most of us spend our lives believing that stability is the natural state of existence. We create plans, build routines, set goals, and imagine a future that follows a predictable path. Even when we know intellectually that life is uncertain, we often behave as though tomorrow will look very much like today. Then something happens. Sometimes it arrives suddenly, like an accident, a loss, a diagnosis, or a major life change. Sometimes it develops gradually until one day we realize that the life we knew no longer exists. Whatever form it takes, the result is the same. The assumptions that once made us feel safe begin to crumble. This is the starting point of the perfect storm. Ekaterina Sigitova describes psychological crises not as signs of weakness or personal failure, but as natural responses to overwhelming change. A crisis occurs when the strategies, beliefs, and emotional resources that once helped us navigate life are no longer sufficient for the reality we are facing. The experience can feel frightening because it often affects every aspect of our lives at the same time. Thoughts become chaotic. Emotions become unpredictable. Motivation disappears. Tasks that once seemed simple suddenly require enormous effort. Many people respond to this experience with self-criticism. They believe they should be coping better. They compare themselves to others. They interpret their emotional struggles as evidence that something is wrong with them. Sigitova argues that this reaction only deepens the crisis. When people are already overwhelmed, adding shame and self-judgment creates an additional burden. Instead of understanding what is happening, they begin fighting against their own emotional reality. One of the book's most important insights is that a crisis is not merely an external event. Two people can experience the same situation and react very differently. What creates a crisis is not only what happens but also how deeply it challenges our understanding of ourselves and the world. A person who loses a job may experience disappointment and quickly move forward. Another person may experience the same event as a profound identity crisis because their sense of worth was closely tied to their career. The external event matters, but the internal meaning matters just as much. This is why psychological crises often feel so disorienting. They force us to confront questions we may have avoided for years. Questions about identity, security, relationships, purpose, and control suddenly become impossible to ignore. The book explains that one of the most painful aspects of a crisis is uncertainty. Human beings naturally seek predictability because it helps us feel safe. During a crisis, however, certainty becomes scarce. The future becomes difficult to imagine, and even simple decisions can feel overwhelming. Many people attempt to escape this discomfort by searching for immediate answers. They want to know exactly when things will improve, exactly what they should do, and exactly how their story will end. Unfortunately, crises rarely provide such clarity. Instead, they require something much more difficult: learning how to live temporarily without complete answers. Sigitova emphasizes that this period of uncertainty is not a mistake in the recovery process. It is part of the process itself. Growth often begins when old assumptions stop working. Before a new understanding can emerge, the previous one must be questioned. This transition is uncomfortable because it feels like losing control. Yet it is often during these moments that people develop deeper resilience, greater self-awareness, and a more realistic understanding of life. Another powerful theme in the book is the importance of accepting emotional reality. Many people believe they should always remain positive. They try to suppress fear, sadness, anger, or grief because these emotions feel uncomfortable or socially unacceptable. The problem is that ignored emotions do not disappear. They remain beneath the surface, consuming energy and influencing behavior. Sigitova encourages readers to acknowledge their feelings honestly rather than treating them as enemies. Emotions contain information. Fear may indicate uncertainty. Sadness may reflect loss. Anger may reveal violated boundaries. Understanding emotions does not mean becoming controlled by them, it means listening to what they are trying to communicate. The book also challenges the popular belief that resilience means remaining strong at all times. In reality, resilience often looks very different. Sometimes resilience means asking for help, sometimes it means resting instead of pushing harder, sometimes it means accepting vulnerability rather than hiding it. One of the most comforting ideas in the book is that recovery is rarely linear. People often expect healing to follow a straight path. They assume that once progress begins, each day should feel better than the last. When difficult emotions return, they conclude that they have failed or moved backward. Sigitova explains that recovery resembles a winding road rather than a straight line. Good days and bad days coexist. Progress and setbacks often occur simultaneously. Temporary regressions do not erase growth. This perspective helps reduce one of the most common sources of suffering during a crisis, the belief that emotional pain should follow a predictable schedule. The author also explores the role of self-compassion. During difficult periods, many people become their own harshest critics. They demand perfect coping skills while navigating circumstances that would challenge anyone. Self-compassion does not mean avoiding responsibility or lowering standards. It means recognizing that being human includes struggle, uncertainty, and imperfection. People often extend kindness to friends who are suffering while denying that same kindness to themselves. The book invites readers to close that gap. As the narrative progresses, a deeper lesson begins to emerge. Crises are not merely interruptions to life. They are part of life. No one escapes change. No one escapes loss. No one escapes uncertainty. The goal is not to build a life free from these realities. The goal is to develop the psychological flexibility required to navigate them. This does not mean enjoying hardship or seeking suffering. It means understanding that adversity is not evidence that life has gone wrong. It is evidence that life is unfolding as life always does, unpredictably. Toward the end of the book, Sigitova offers a hopeful perspective. While crises often begin with destruction, they can also create space for reconstruction. Old identities may fall apart, old assumptions may disappear, old plans may become impossible. Yet these endings often create opportunities for new beginnings that could not have existed otherwise. Many people eventually discover strengths they never knew they possessed. They develop deeper empathy, stronger boundaries, clearer priorities, and a greater appreciation for what truly matters. The storm changes them, but it does not necessarily destroy them. The final message of The Perfect Storm is both realistic and encouraging. Psychological crises are painful, confusing, and exhausting. There is no shortcut through them and no guarantee of immediate relief. However, crises are also survivable. You do not need to have all the answers today. You do not need to feel strong every moment. You do not need to know exactly what the future holds. What matters is continuing to move forward, even when the path is unclear. Because the goal is not to avoid every storm that life brings. The goal is to learn that even in the middle of the storm, you are far more capable of enduring it than you realize. And sometimes, when the clouds finally clear, you discover that the person who emerges is stronger, wiser, and more resilient than the person who entered it.